What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, you are watching TWA Motorsports, and today we are back on the 54 Chevy. Look, you're going to be seeing other stuff in the background that's going on, but we need to get this rear end back under this thing. The paint, for the most part, is dry. There's other pieces that I think I'm going to have to paint, but I won't show you guys that, and they're just like the little brake line clips and whatnot. So anyway, here's where we're starting, right? The last video, we cleaned this all up. We got it all painted. We got our brackets that hold the C6 brakes. I don't know why I didn't think about it, but I did not paint the C6 brakes. That was dumb. So that's one of the things I'm gonna paint off camera. But look, guys, I started this by not knowing, so I didn't even turn the camera on, if I could get the axle seals out. To me, look, it's a good time. We're here, everything's apart. Let's knock these axle seals out. So you can see one I knocked out there, the other one's sitting on the other side. I literally just took a hammer and a chisel and worked my way around because it sets up like there's a lip here. So I knocked on the inner side of that lip, pushing it out, and once I made it halfway through, it popped out, and you can see there's oil there, and it flung some oil over here. But I just think it's a good idea. So I'm gonna be replacing those while we're at it. So that is our next step. I'm gonna pop those in. And guys, really, that's the only thing I had been waiting on to start reassembling is knocking those out, but I had to wait for the paint to dry. So we're gonna get new ones in, and then we're gonna put the axles in. We're gonna start putting these brake caliper brackets together and making sure everything kind of fits. We also need to press our new bushings in this guy, which I'm hoping to be able to do with a ball joint press. If not, I can run over to my neighbor's. He has a press. Guys, I don't think they're gonna be that bad, but now that I probably shouldn't say that. They probably will be. But that is kind of our start. I would like to assemble this rear end on the jack stance. So meaning put the axles in and whatnot, and the C-clips back in, and the differential cover back on. And kind of get things assembled in its setting, and then we'll worry about bending new brake lines. So like I said, I don't like the way the brake lines look. I don't necessarily know that the rear brakes were even getting fluid, so we may have other issues from here forward. I don't know, but that's where we're going to start today. Here's what I've got rigged up. Okay, I've got it over here on my toolbox. We got the new bushing, and I'm going to put a little grease on the outside of this. I'm going to put a little grease on the inside here, but it looks like I'm good because it'll clear this, so I don't have to use anything on the bottom. For the top, I'm going to use a socket, get it lined up. And so, guys, this is how I'm planning on pressing this thing in. Will it work? I don't know. We're going to see. I'm going to get a little bit of grease, get this all set up, and we'll try to push it through. If it doesn't, like I said, my neighbor does have a press. Guys, look, a press is probably your best option. But, you know, if you can do it in your garage and you don't have a press, I think this option will work too. So you can see kind of what I got going on here. I'm using the impact, and it's going right in. I may have to loosen up and readjust the bottom. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna have to definitely adjust the bottom a little bit, but you can see that, man, it's going through just like it's supposed to. It just needs to go a little further. The bottom of this moved on me. I was able to get it in there. Look, the only issue is you can push it a little too far. So what I'm trying to do, guys, is I'm trying to center this metal sleeve here. All right, so this metal sleeve fits in here, and I've got it kind of equal on both sides, and I think that's what we're looking for, so it's right in the middle. But yeah, that wasn't too bad. And I think what happens is the end of this kind of opens up, so it's not closed. I think that makes life a little easier pressing it in. It kind of opens up as it's going in, but I think we're good. Now I've got some new bearings here from Precision. It took me, or bearings, axle seals. It took me a little while to find them, but I did get them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab a rubber mallet. We're going to tap these things in. I might try to find something that's a little bigger than this so we can just tap on this outer. We don't want to be tapping on the inside piece here, but let me go get a rubber mallet. We'll tap these in place, and that'll be a good starting point. Yeah, I don't have anything this big that I can center on it. I was trying to use an oil filter. I don't really want to push on the middle piece, so what I may do, well, it's going. want to make sure that this is set completely up against that rear end. I'm sure there's an installer they make, I just don't have one. I don't do this a lot. We're getting there. I have to move my stands. All right, we about got that flush, and let me get the other side in, and I think, guys, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get the brake brackets next. Once we have that seal in, I've got my bolts that hold on our new bracket, right? So look, this bracket can only go on a certain way, and we're wanting to tilt our brakes to the 4 o'clock position. So that's this. Now look, this is, you can put these on either way, right? So you can either get a 4 o'clock position, or you could get a, what, like 8 o'clock position? We want the 4 o'clock position. So I'm reusing bolts that we got out of this thing. Oh man, my holes aren't big enough. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to waller out the holes a little bit. The stock bolts won't fit in there. I wonder if it came with extras. We're gonna check the box. It may have actually came with some. I just had to open these holes up a little bit so I could get the stock bolts in. It came with some, but not the right amount. And I may have them mixed up with another batch over there. But guys, this only fits one direction, all right? And you'll notice that my paint probably got us in a spot too where we may have to clean up the threads on the actual rear end. Maybe we can get it in there. There we go. So like I said, we're putting these in the 4 o'clock position, or you could alternate sides and put them in a different spot, but the whole purpose of this is to get it away from the frame. And I don't have torque specs for this. I'm just gonna get it nice and tight. I'm a little concerned about this one hitting the back. It may not. Get lucky here. Ooh, I don't know. I may have to put a washer behind that one or find a shorter bolt. But I'm gonna get these snug down, and we'll continue on. You know, after I get both those cinched down with the stock bolts, I found some bolts that came with it, but hey, those work. I painted them, we're gonna use them. All right, I'm ready to put the axles in, and I actually think, guys, those are made in a manner where they'd slide over the axle, but obviously, you know, we've got everything apart, the axles are out, so it doesn't really matter. But what I am gonna do is, there was a bunch of junk in here. I just wanna clean it out before we roll this thing back over. So I'm just using some brake clean. Try to get anything out of here that may cause us problems. Then, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna roll this rear end over so we can get access to the outside. And my C-clips are actually in this nice little area here, which sucks, but we'll get it. So I'm gonna have to get my magnet and fish those out of there, but I'm gonna go ahead and push the axles in and get ready to put our C-clips back in. Well, after going fish, we got our pieces out, our C-clips. So we've got our axle in there. Oh, it may need to come over a little further actually on this side. Let's push it in a little further here if we can. There we go. Put our C-clip in, and then we're gonna pull that axle out. There we go. So it's set. Let's push our other one in as far as it goes. Do the same thing on it. And you'll hear about these C-clip eliminators, guys. That's what they're meaning when they take these out of place, because they can get unruly if the car's got a ton of power. All right, now that we got that, we need to slide our pin back in. It's this guy here. Oh, that axle needs to come out a little further. There we go. And guys, look, if your spider gear comes out, which it does sometime, and that's these two gears here, just make sure that they're positioned at opposite sides, because they do come out. Mine fell out because I rotated the rear end over. But once we get this guy in place, we can go ahead and put our 8mm back in. Come on. I'm gonna have to roll it over a little to get some more access, maybe to the top side or a little bit lower. It's long. Well, of course, why wouldn't I drop it? All right, I'm gonna fish that out of there. We'll get it in. I was able to just roll the rear end over and it fell out in my hand. So we got it in there, guys. This pin can go in different ways. So if it's not threading in, you know you're not in the pin. So make sure that that's the case. And I rolled it over to where I was between the cap and the bolt for the main cap. And we'll get this snug down. I'm sure there's a torque spec on this, but let's get it nice and snug here. And we're ready to continue. My issue now is I was gonna go ahead and put the cover on with the new cover gasket. My problem is, remember guys, my bolts are pretty beat up. I had to hammer on a 12mm even though they're supposed to be 13. So while I went ahead and cleaned up some of them, I just don't trust them. If I ever had to take them out, I think they'd give me fits. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna order a new set. So we're gonna move on from this point. We've got all that installed. I think what I plan to do next is let's go ahead and go to put the leaf springs in over there and see if we have any issues there. I also cleaned up some of the bolts, and then obviously we got new hangers for the back. Now that we're under the car here, you can see I got new mounts, because remember mine was worn out. So what we need to do is we need to put a bushing in on both sides. We're also going to have to do this on the leaf pack, but let's do this. Probably end up pushing that one out. You can see this is what was worn out on the other one. Actually, guys, it probably, I should go get some grease. I think I'm gonna put a little grease on that as well. So we've got that. We need to do the same thing on the bottom, and then we're gonna thread the leaf pack on. But I think this is gonna be the best way, because what happens is when you take the leaf springs out, they tend to curve up, go back to their natural state. So getting this one hooked up is gonna be harder than the front one, I think. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to put pressure on the bottom of the spring, I think, to straighten it back out a little bit in order to get it in the front hole. But we'll let me get some grease on these and we'll see what we can get accomplished. Now you can see once I got those together and greased up, I did go ahead and snug them down. Now, I don't want these snug right now, really, but I'm gonna be torquing these down or tightening these up once the suspension is loaded. The reason I tighten them up is when you do that, it'll swing this thing forward, and that's gonna give us a little more room, because guys, we are gonna be short of hitting this here, as you can see. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna go have to get a jack and put underneath this. And you're probably wondering, why don't you do this with the rear end? I think, to me, guys, it would be easier to lift up on the center of this without the rear end in place. I may be wrong, let me know in the comments, but once we hit this, if I start lifting up on the car, what I think is going to happen is it's going to force its way to the opening, and then hopefully we can get the bolt started. I don't know, we'll just have to see. Woo-wee, I got it, but here's how I did it. All right, so that actually started to fold up. See what I did? I put two 2x4s in there to keep it from rolling up, because that thing swung all the way to the frame. I then put the jack under it to jack it up. It got very close, guys. So what I ended up having to do is, once it got in the pocket, the hole wasn't quite lined up. Well, it's got a ton of pressure up against it. So what I did was I took my pry bar, put in here, and pulled down enough where I get the bolt in. And so now it's in. And I know, like I said, some people are probably saying, why didn't you put the rear end at the same time? I feel like this would have been even harder with the rear end attached. And it would have been putting more droop, since the rear end's on top of the leaf pack. I think it would have put more droop on it, and we would have fought. So got it in. You can see I started on the other side. I haven't got the front one in yet, but I'm gonna go do the exact same process over there. And then back to the rear end. Hopefully we'll have some bolts for the rear cover. Here's what I've decided to do. Look, we're gonna have to wait for bolts, so we might as well try to get this started. I'm gonna have to make a brake line anyway. So this guy hooks on here like so. And I'm probably gonna have to do that because I painted these, and each one of these, I think it's gonna be a snug fit. But I wanna check our alignment, because we may have to shim this a little bit. So that'll be our next step. Let's get all 4 of these in here. And this does come with some Loctite. I think that's actually more for the caliper to this bracket, but we'll probably put a little bit on this once we know everything is lined up like it's supposed to be and the backing's correct. So let me get these. This is what happens when you paint stuff. These holes were probably perfect before, and then I decided to paint them because they're bare steel and they'd rust. This goes on like this. So your actual nut will be on the inside. Okay, so if you put it the other way, you could potentially hit the end of the screw, or the bolt here could hit the rotor, so we don't want that. I'm gonna go ahead, put these all on, and I'm gonna snug them down, and then what we'll do is we'll grab the rotor, and then eventually the caliper, make sure everything fits. Now that we got these all tightened down, we can grab the actual rotor that goes on this side. Bought a set of power stops, so I really like their product. What I may have to do here is we may have to grab a lug nut and snug down on these. I think I've got some open lug nuts to keep this thing straight while we test fit our rotor, or our caliper, I mean. Now that we got that in place, got my caliper here. I need to probably I'm gonna take it's got brand new pads in it, which sucks because I ordered new pads, but I need to set this thing on here, get this kind of out of the way for now, and see what we're dealing with. And I can tell you without a doubt, we're gonna have to shim this thing because we're a long ways off. Well, I see that. Yeah. We're a long ways off on the pad. This needs to be centered basically, and we are probably, golly, we're at least half an inch off. So I'm gonna have to get some washers, which this kit didn't come with any washers to space anything out. Generally what you would want to space out would be your bracket back here. Okay, so that bracket that we just put on, I probably should put you guys in a different spot here. So this bracket right here is what we would be looking to space forward, that you can see when I'm not even close, and we need to be centered in this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back apart. I'm going to take these guys out, and I'm going to put my washer pack in the middle here. But we're going to take up every bit of this, I would assume. Well, I actually used a nut as a spacer just so I didn't have to use so many washers. I don't know if you guys can see that right there. It's not going to work. You can hear it's barely dragging. It needs to come back this way a little bit, so that nut is a little too thick. I have a couple of these, so what I'm thinking is I'm going to try these next. And from looking like at washers and this nut, I think 6 washers equals what I'm doing here. Now look guys, I bought these for a 2-wheel drive rear end just because I was in a pinch. Yeah, about 6 washers equal that. So we need to go down to about 5 washers. And 5 washers is the equivalent to this nut that I have right here. So we're gonna try that next. I actually got a few new bolts. Guys, the bolt size for the S10 or 10 bolt rear end should be, if it's the newer style like this is, it should be a M8 by 125, okay? That's the thread pitch. Now, the length that I got is just a hair shorter than what the factory ones were, but that shouldn't be a problem. We should have ample grab here to get where we need to go. And I only got 8 because I'm gonna be using the others. Man, I'm not 100%, that doesn't feel, it's the same thread pitch. You just, interesting. This doesn't thread in like the other ones do, that's for sure. Making sure that it's the same thread pitch. Yep. We're gonna give it a shot anyway. Well, after double checking those do not work, guys. So obviously they are not M125. I gotta quit doing that. They're not M125 or 8 by 125 or something else. So I've got the originals. I was just missing 2, and then 2 of them were torn up. So I'm gonna have to source another set, but we can move on with what I wanna do here. So I wanna go ahead and put the rear cover on. And so I got a certain kind of gasket for that. And we're not gonna be able to torque it down really until I get the other bolts. But I chose a lube blocker gasket is what they're called. And guys, they're, in my opinion, the absolute best gasket on the market. Let me show you what it looks like. It's kind of got like silicone built into it. See that? How nice that looks? And I'll list this in the description. This is meant for a 10 bolt rear end. And you can see, I don't think there's like a top or a bottom. It can go either way because the holes are symmetrical. But since we've got that, let's go ahead and put this thing on. And on this, it is kind of specific. I've cleaned both sides off, if you're wondering. So obviously the gasket, we cleaned it, or the mating surface there. I'm gonna clean this off one more time, but I used the wire brush on the cover a while back. But we're gonna get some of these started. And look guys, you can use silicone if you want. It's just not my preferred method. And I've actually got a little bit that came over the edge here. I'm gonna scrape off before we put this together. Let's try this again now that I've got this cleaned off. I thought I had it all cleaned off, but a lot of times that POR 15, it'll come around the ledge on you. Start up here up top. Like I said, I'm not going to torque this down yet since we don't have all the bolts. I may have to get some used at a local salvage yard or something, guys. I've never had luck with these. For some reason, it's like an oddball thread pitch. And I looked it up, and I took one of these with me to the store, and obviously it's still not it. So we're going to have a brake line holder right here, so we'll leave that one out. We'll just kind of go in each corner to get it centered and use what we got. And remember, these are 13s. I think originally there may have been a brake line holder here too, but I think we're just going to go with the one that was on the passenger side for now. missing like, I need 4 of them really. So after doing some digging in my nut and bolt bin, I found 2 more that we need. Now, there's still 2 kind of rounded off ones that we had to knock a 12 onto to get them out, but I think that'll work. So what I'm gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna torque this thing down to 30 foot-pounds. 25 to 30 is what I'm reading is the stock torque spec on these. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start at the top in the middle. We'll get it to 30. Ooh, that's a lot. Okay, and then we'll go down to the bottom. We're just gonna kind of alternate back and forth. So then we'll come over here and do this one. And go over here. And you notice that I put my brake line bracket back on as well, and that's one of the rounded off ones. Kind of work our way back and forth, getting 30 foot-pounds on this, and then hopefully it doesn't leak. But I did paint my bracket. I put the T back here, and we'll deal with that a little later because we got to make some brake lines. Next thing I'm waiting on here, and I've ordered them, but I'm guessing on brake lines. So I may have to go to my local parts store and just find a rubber line. Guys, this isn't going to work. It's going to hit the frame and eventually chafe and break. And so I don't love the way that looks. Now, could I like loop it around? Yeah, but I'm afraid it's gonna touch the lead pack. There's just a lot going on there. So I'd rather get something shorter. I'm measuring about 8 inches here. I'm hoping that these lines, it's hard to order lines, but I'm hoping we got an 8-inch line coming, and that's our next step. We need to get these lines here, pin them down, and then we're gonna have to create a line that comes from here, goes over the rear end to the T, and then from this T, this side of the T over to the other one. So should have those in a few days. At this point, you can see I've got a brake line I found that's somewhat the right size. I don't have it hooked up yet, but gives you an idea. I've got it pinned down here with the clip. So guys, now what I need to do is we need to make some brake line that goes from here to the T, and then from there over the rear end to this guy. So I'm gonna set up my stuff over by my vise and kind of show you what I'm gonna be doing. But first, I'm gonna measure from like here and get a rough estimate on how long my piece needs to be. We can always trim it down as needed, but I'm gonna do the same thing on both sides. So we'll measure a small piece. I'm gonna use Nico is what they call it. It's easy to bend. And once I get that and then we get set up over there, I'll kind of show you what we're gonna be doing. Start with here, you can see that I've got a coil of this Nico. And so I measured a piece. It was about 30 inches long and about 12 inches long. And then I used my cutter, just a little hand cutter, to cut that. Now, we need to straighten this, obviously, guys. It comes on a roll. I'll show you. I've got a tool that does this. It's actually meant for pecs, but it works really well on this. So I'm gonna set it up in my vise over there, and then we'll show you how I'm gonna straighten it to get started. And then we're gonna show you how I'm going to flare it, because I've got a tool for that as well. Now for the straightening process, this is what I've got. This, like I said, this tool's meant for straightening out pecs, but let me tell you what else it does a great job of, straightening out this stuff. So what you do is you kind of work your way back and forth. Now, look, I've got it really loosened up to get this line through right now, but you can work the piece down back and forth and side to side. And once it gets loose, then you crank it down a little more. And you don't want to go too crazy because you'll flatten out the pipe. But this thing works awesome for straightening line. Now, I don't need it 100% perfect straight, but you get the idea of what we're doing here. Look how much straighter that is just doing a couple passes, and we'll just keep going until it doesn't have much of a bow in it at all. And I'm gonna do that with both pieces. That other one is the short one, obviously, and it won't take as much. But like I said, this is for pecs, but man, it works great on this. Works great on, it seems to work pretty good on stainless too. I've done it on a couple different pieces of stainless. So there's what we've got. Pretty straight piece. We finished with that. I'm going to use a deburring tool to deburr the ends of both of these lines, and I probably will end up cutting the other side, so I'm going to just deburr this side for now. You want to make sure that that's opened up and looks like full size. Now guys, look, don't forget your fitting here. I know it's really easy to do this, but we're going to swap this tool out now, since we've got the pipe flattened, for the flaring tool. Now we're on to the flaring tool, which, guys, look, I went back and forth on buying one of these a long time ago, and it's worth every penny. I've got the die in there that we need. So kind of how this works is once you put your tool on, you put this together, you put this into place, and I like to slide my line out just a little bit, and then we're going to go to the stop, okay? And then once you do that, I think I'm going to have to move this a little bit, but we're going to swing this back, and that's going to level this up where it needs to be. That's why I slide the pipe through a little bit. Once I do that, then we can snug down our end. I need to get my, don't forget your piece that goes on. I'm gonna have to move some stuff around here. I'm kind of working in tight quarters, but you can see what I'm talking about once I get it past this point. This will level it up. Okay, we're level, so now we can tighten this thing down. Okay, it's not a bad idea, and I didn't do it, and I should. But this Nico line's not quite as it's not quite as bad. But on normally, guys, on like stainless and whatnot, you would want to file the end of it, make sure you had a nice even opening. But let's say that you did that. Okay, we got this snug down. We're gonna go to the 3/16 operation 1, because that's what we're messing with here, is 3/16 brake line. We're gonna swing this guy in. There's one. I like to do it twice just to make sure we get it. And then we are going to swing to the number 2 on the 3/16. It'll say operation 2. And that folds it the second time over. And then check it out when I pull it out of here, how nice this end looks. Look at that flare. It's like almost perfect every time. I've never had this thing screw up unless for some reason your pipe was messed up, but look at that perfect flare every time. So you can kind of see what I've got over here. I've got the 2 ends flared. I went ahead and flared the other end that you guys are on the longer piece. So you can see I've got them snug down. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to have to kind of bend this as we go. So I like to snug it down on one side, and then we're going to start the bend. This is what's great about this Nico line, is you can really put, you know, kind of your own flair on the way you want it bent. All right, hoping that I have enough here. It's so easy to bend by hand, and so we're not, look, obviously guys, I'm not perfect at this, but the ability to bend this so easy, golly, it makes life so much simpler. Now, when we get to the end here, we're gonna have to figure out where we're gonna cut it. This is where doing this a lot probably, you know, it's probably better than what I'm doing, but I know that my fitting that I need is gonna go a certain depth, and then we're gonna have to have an end on it. So we're gonna have to kind of put this in. I'm gonna see how, when this starts to bottom out. Okay, that goes quite a ways in. So I'm thinking we can probably trim some off of this. And then that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna trim some off, and then this should probably draw in a little bit, and then we can kind of adjust our bend afterwards. But I'm gonna mark this, I'm gonna cut it, I'm gonna do the exact same thing to the other side. Don't forget to put your fitting on, guys. It's a common problem. But I'm gonna loosen this all up, cut this off a little bit. I actually need to get a marker. And then once we do that, kind of want to make it look a little better. We'll adjust that a little bit by hand once we get, I like the look of this though, kind of contouring the rear end. I wish this was bent a little bit differently, but this will work. Now you can see what we got. I did the hard one first, I guess. We'll start that in there. And then, so here's the situation on this one. You can see that it's kind of short. So what will happen is as you're plugging this in, it's going to start to straighten out that line. So you kind of gotta, I don't know, guys, it's kind of a trial and error thing. And as you tighten this up, this line's gonna pull down, and it's gonna take some of your bend out of it, which is fine. But if you cut it too short, then it may, I was trying to keep it from going over the bolts if I ever had to, pull the rear end out of this or change. And then once we get it kind of snug down, I'm gonna go ahead and really kind of hammer down on it. Once we get it snug down, then we can go back and kind of put a different kind of bend in it, if that makes sense. Maybe bring it down some there and a little up some here, make it, kind of more uniform looking. That's one thing about this Nico line that it's really nice. I like that. I can live with that. I pull a little out here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Almost looks like a professional did it. I'm just kidding. I'm by far no professional. I wish I could. We may experiment a little bit on stainless when I don't love this on the 55. I mean, it's okay for this, but I may down the road on the 55 switch over to stainless, and if we do that, we'll see how easy it bends. I don't think it bends quite as easy. Well, in fact, I know it doesn't bend as easy. And I'm probably going a little deeper than I need to. It seems pretty uniform curve. And it's stationary, it's not going to be bouncing around. Now, we need to kind of work a little bit. You don't want to kink this, but you can kind of work your way into what we need on this side. Looks pretty good. And then we'll do the same over here. We'll mark this. I'm going to mark this one a little longer. Give me a little more room here. And then I've been cutting it right here on the rear end, just loosening it up, and we'll just cut it right here, and then we'll go make sure and put our piece on, and then go flare it. Now, I don't love this one as much. I should have cut it just a hair shorter, but I'm not going to redo it. It still looks pretty good. I want it to be a little more uniform than what it is. We can, like I said, bend around it a little bit, but yeah, it's not bad. And this isn't the greatest placement of this. So at this point, you know what, guys? I'm gonna go ahead and take the fill plug out. I've got these all snug down. I'm gonna end up painting the rotors, but I think I wanna go ahead and try to put this thing back in the car. But before I do, so I don't have fits, I'm gonna try to take the fill plug out up here and see how stubborn it's gonna be after painting it. I tried to stay away from it with the POR 15. So as you can see, I've just kind of got it balanced, and I'm going to thread it through on the leaf springs. Probably should have left the leaf springs out till last, but look, I wanted to go ahead and put them in. I got the pieces for it. So let's give it a shot. See if we can set it in there on those blocks. I don't know, guys. We'll see what happens. We've encountered our next set of problems. Put this in, snug the U-bolts down. Guys, we still got to torque the suspension and whatnot. We want to make sure it's loaded. But at this point, I've got it off the jack stands, just barely with the jack. Lifting from the rear end. I went ahead and hooked the drive shaft up. I haven't tightened that down yet, but I hooked it up. And look, we have fixed our clearance issue with the brake caliper hitting the frame. Not only will it not hit, but even if it traveled that far, it's not going to hit. I mean, there's no way it's going to have 4 inches, 5 inches of travel. It's going to hit the bump stop way before that. So aside from that, the line, I think the line will be okay. It's actually going to curve up a little bit, but I don't think we're going to have any problem with the line. Now, the problem that we did encounter, however, is I got to thinking, you know what? These are 15-inch wheels. I wonder if they'll fit. So right before I turned the camera on, I put one of those guys up in there, and guess what? They don't fit. It's just not quite thick enough. This section, like, it'll go on like 3 of the lug nuts and most of these 2, but it's hitting on the back side of this wheel. It's just not, it doesn't have enough dish in the middle of it to clear that. So I think some 15-inch wheels would fit that maybe didn't have this. So like if they bolted like this and then had this as, you know, kind of curved out, I think that would work. But that means, guys, I'm going to end this video right here because I'm going to have to source some different wheels. Now, if I had another set to put on the 52 back there, I could move these over. You guys saw a video a while back when I swapped those wheels on it, and I do like the look of those. However, I don't have anything to put on that to keep it as a roller. So we're just going to have to do some digging, try to figure out exactly what I want to do here. I'm kind of bummed about it, but hey, guys, I'm excited that we fixed the caliper issue, and I'm also going to, before the next video on this thing, I'm going to take the calipers off. I'm going to paint those, and so hopefully in the next video you will see this thing going back together with new wheels, and hopefully we could take it down the road. But hopefully you guys have been enjoying this heartache that I purchased hoping to drive when I got it home. But if you have been, go down there and hit that thumbs up button. Guys, if you are not subscribed, go down and hit the subscribe button. Of course, like always, ring that bell notification. That notifies you every single time we drop a new video. And stay tuned to see this thing get on the road.